All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Rakakadash, that honors the apostles and elders, great millstone of teachings of truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquatham and listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Raquai. I'm back in here with another quick lesson. And for today's lesson, this is going to be a short, brief lesson. I actually kind of wanted to do a little bit of digging into this word. And the word is called Kosmeo. It's spelled Kosmeo. It's a word in the Greek, right? So, what does this word mean? So, I was just kind of doing a response in regards to a lesson the Apostle Kabar did in regards to essentially stirring up that gift. I believe it says that in First or Second Timothy's, one of the two. I believe it's Second Timothy's. And essentially, kind of like being a dragon, right? Being somebody very well studied, right? So I wanted to go into this word, right? Because it reminded me of this word in the book of Matthew, chapter 25, in regards to the 10 virgins, right? So what I want to do, I'm just going to jump straight to the point. Okay, so the parable, this is Matthew 20. This is Matthew chapter 25. Okay, I'll start at verse 1 and just jump down to the point. So here it says, Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins who took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 were wise and 5 were foolish, right? So I want to jump down to the point where it says that they trimmed, right? So, and at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, right? So when you go into the word, let me just get it real quick. When you go into the word trim, okay, so the word for trim, let's just get it. The word here is cosmeo. Let me see if I could play it.
Strong's G 2885, Kosmeo. Kosmeo.
The word is cosmeo, right? So it says to put in order, to arrange, to make ready, to ornament, adorn, to embellish with honor, to gain honor, right? So, this, and then I'm using this in I guess in a parabolic sense because, this is something that you might associate women will do, right? For example, they might, put their, they might fix up their hair, their women, they might like picture a man that's going out with a woman, they're going on a date, one thing she would do essentially is to, one thing she will do is okay, she might start fixing her hair, she might put on some nice earrings, wear some nice perfume, do one this, these things are the fourth, right? With the same principle really applies, right? The hopeful elect in this time, Lord's will, the Lord has mercy on us and we be those men. We're putting ourselves essentially as that, that bride, so to speak, right? No, I'm putting ourselves in order, right? Because the majority of our people, they're essentially they're in a state of disorder. They're not putting themselves in order, and that's the one thing that this wisdom and knowledge actually does. That's why the scriptures say that wisdom is the principal thing, and therefore get wisdom, right? So this is something that is essentially putting us back in our stead, like an Israelite man. Like it says that the whole duty of man is to fear the Most High and keep His commandments. For this is the whole duty of man, right? To roughly paraphrase, and that's one of the things that this wisdom actually does, right? So I'm using that in a parabolic sense with the wife and and the husband, right? So the same kind of applies to us, us being that essentially that spiritual wife married unto the Lord, right? So the Lord can essentially receive us, in times of mercy, in times of trouble, so to speak, right? So it says to put in order. I'll just read it again. It says put in order, arrange, make ready, right? Paul talks about this in 2 Corinthians 11. I've espoused you to one husband, right? Because one of the things the Lord doesn't like us doing, the Lord is a jealous power, right? And one of the things the Lord doesn't like us doing is essentially following other ways of other gods, and then following, their customs and learning their ways. Learn not the ways of the heathen, right? So it also says to ornament and adorn, and that's one of the things that we don't do, because we know that as a matter of fact, let me get that first precept. Just bear with me on this. Let me just pull up the Apocrypha. I thought this precept, kind of connected beautifully, right? What's that? Okay, this is Sirach chapter 1, verse 18, and it says, "The fear of the Lord is a crown of wisdom, making peace and perfect health to flourish, both which are gifts of the Most High, and it enlargeth their rejoicing that love him. Wisdom raineth down skill in knowledge of understanding, and exalteth him to honor that hold her fast." Right? So it's just showing you the after effects of actually having a fear of the Lord, right? And then essentially what happens is when we have a healthy fear of the Lord, it puts us in like a straight path, essentially, because it prevents us from doing certain things, because a lot of those things that are essentially they're for our detriment, right? So we stay away, and we kind of take a back burner on a lot of things, right? We shun wicked thoughts, wicked behaviors, and so on and so forth, right? Because a lot of these ways and practices, especially here in Babylon, it promotes a system and it promotes a culture of death. And Jake doesn't understand that, because Jake sometimes thinks that like, for example, let's just take for example certain laws. If you tell our people to stop eating certain things, and stop doing certain things, like for example adultery or whatnot, they think you're placing a heavy burden on you. But technically, yes, it is a burden, but it's a burden to actually protect you. It's not a burden to cause you pain and detriment. But all people don't understand the ways of how to actually please the Lord, so they will do these things, and then they do essentially damnation unto their own soul. As a matter of fact, there's a precept on that in Proverbs. Oh boy, I forgot how it goes, but I know there's a precept in there, Proverbs. But anyways, I'll just read this a little. Verse 20, it says, "The root of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, and branches thereof are a long life," right? So essentially, it puts these things away, these different sins. We refrain from sinning, right? We don't do according to the culture of this world. Like it says in Romans, we're not conformed to the ways of this world, right? We essentially we apply and imitate, and do the not just practice and rehearse the righteous acts, but we also implement the conduct of Yahushua, right? That's one of the reasons I wanted to put a crown on the screen here, right? Because that is something. A crown is something like when you say somebody becomes a king. A crown is something that kind of adorns the person who's wearing it. It comes with so it comes with authority, one, but the crown also has jewels on it, so it makes the person stand out, right? It embellishes how that person's looks. The scriptures talk about how a man is known by his look, right? Let me get one second. Okay, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 1, and it says, "Who is as a wise man and knoweth the interpretation of a thing?" Right? "A man's wisdom maketh his face to shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed." Right? So it shows you, this is what wisdom actually does. It's something that it actually embellishes, on your manner. Embellishes on who you are. All right, and a lot of people, a lot of brothers and even apostles, elders can even attest to it and actually can give their own testimony of how people respond in regards to you essentially applying wisdom. A good example in the scriptures was in Joseph, for example, he was able to actually break down the dream. What will happen after the Lord, not the Lord, sorry, it was Pharaoh. He gave him some jewelry. I believe he also gave him a chain also, but essentially he gave him status. He gave him the ability to actually make executive decisions, right? And he was given honor. That's one of the things that I wanted to kind of touch on. He was essentially, because he was already embellished on the inside. That's the point I really wanted to make too, because he had, I don't want to say he had the opportunity, but the wife of the Pharaoh came on to him, but he held on to his embellishment, he held on to his integrity, he held on to his fear of the Lord, right? Because he knew at that time that that thing was wrong to do. So he refused her advances, and then he suffered, and eventually he was given that honor at the end, right? He was given that status, he was given that respect, because he was able to actually properly, give the Pharaoh at the time a proper action plan on what to do, in the times of, there was supposed to be a time of famine and a time of good harvest, right? So Joseph, the Lord was with Joseph, right? But the point I'm really trying to make is he was adorned on the inside, right? And then it eventually, him, having the jewelry, and the Pharaoh giving him the linen. I think it was a linen outfit as well, right? After he was able to break down the dream, the Lord essentially, he was adorned physically on the outside, right? So the spiritual was first, and then the physical adornment came after, right? So that's really the point I'm trying to, connect and make the point here, right? Okay, let me see. What did I have? Oh, that's a good one. I'm just gonna go back to Sirach. Just bear with me. Okay, this is Sirach chapter 38, verse 24. And it says, "The wisdom of a learnt man cometh by opportunity of leisure, and he that hath little business shall become wise. How can he get wisdom that holdeth the plough, and glory in the goad that that driveth oxen, and is occupied in the labors, and whose talk is of bullocks? right? So it shows that that's wisdom essentially. It's a constant like toil. The process of actually, Apostle Bar was talking about the process of actually being a dragon, and looking up, you look up words, you go through different parts of history, you read, you go through the prophecies and so on and so forth, right? So it's essentially it's a constant toil, and even apostles has always talked about the toil that they always had to do, for example, like I guess going to the library, and now it's so convenient for us to be able to pull up certain things on the phone or the BLB or whatever, and then to actually bring out this understanding. Essentially, you keep your lamp, your lamp is trimmed, right? You're more adorned, right? When you go into these things, you look up your words, you go through the Hebrew, the Greek, you learn, might be a different language, and that keeps up that adds to the embellishing, that adds to the adornment, right? That's the point I'm really trying to make here. I'm saying that the adornment really starts really on the inside. That's why scriptures talk about let the words of Mashiach Yahushua dwell within you richly, right? And then that's something that people notice. People pick up on these things, right? But not only in just knowing, but also applying a lot of these things too as well, right? So that also, although no, those two I'm talking about, knowing and then actually, applying a lot of these precepts, so on and so forth, also adds to the adornment as well. Verse 26. Here it says, He giveth his mind to make furrows, and is diligent to give to the kind fodder. So every carpenter and workmaster that laboreth night and day, and they that cut and grave seals, and are diligent to make great variety, and give themselves to counterfeit imagery to watch a finished work. Right, so it's showing you a certain level of diligence that's also required as well. That's why we're always making these lessons. We're always keeping our minds occupied on the scriptures, right? Because that also adds to the adornment, right? It also keeps us what's the word I'm looking for? It also adds to the character as well, right? We're occupied in the prophecies, we're going through different parts of history to also, to bring on a lot of this edification, right? Scriptures talk about he that believeth on me, as the scripture hath said, out of its belly shall flow rivers of living water, right? Because if you notice, there's a completely contrast spirit when you go into, for example, the Catholic Church. And a lot of brothers and even sisters can even attest to this. When it comes to understanding, the New Testament, for example, a lot of our people, they don't have any understanding of what's actually going on, because one, they took the Apocrypha out, and two, well, the Lord doesn't dwell with temples made with hands, but three, that diligence that we're referring to is not, is not present. They don't actually challenge what the actual, people, they don't actually go into essentially what is being told to them, right? They don't understand the history, right? They don't understand prophecies, they don't understand, a lot of things. So, right. So that spirit of diligence is not there. So they're not essentially rich with that understanding, right? So let me just grab, okay, let me just grab this real quick. Okay, this is Acts 17, verse 10, and it says, and the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, whose come thither went to the synagogue of the Jews, and they were more noble than those in Thessalonica, and in that they receive the word with all readiness of mind, and search the scriptures daily whether the things were so. So, when the things that were, told to them, they search the scriptures, right? Blessed is he that readeth, and our people, and that's something that's another people don't, that culture of actually, okay, going through the scriptures and, that diligence essentially to actually, prove all things, that spirit, you don't see that spirit emanating in a lot of these different churches, right? They don't actually go through the things that's actually being taught to them. They can't prove and substantiate the things that is being told to them, right? So that's why a lot of our people are so essentially dazed and confused, because they don't have any understanding of what's actually being spoken of or what's actually being written of, right? So as a matter of fact, I believe the word Berea, hold on, just wanted to get this word just for edification. Okay, Berea means Beroia in the Greek. It means well watered, right? So it's a place of, it's a living water, so to speak, right? So that's what this understanding is. But anyways, I kind of just wanted to bring out that that point in regards to the adornment, in regards to the ornament, in regards to actually being more of a dragon, all these different things. It makes us more well-rounded. And the scriptures talk about, you have an unction from the Holy One to know all things, right? So anyways, I guess I'll just leave it there. I don't want to make the lesson too long, but, praying, sincerely hoping that this lesson was edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashim El Shai. Till next time, I say Shalom.